Hello and welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I am your host Dave, and with me always is the lovely Laura. And tonight, we're going to discuss something gruesome and something horrible. We may laugh, we may make some jokes, we use gallows humor here. It's not for the faint of heart, you may be offended. And if you're a delicate boy that plays the drums in an alt-rock band from Chicago, you will be offended. And you probably should listen to something else, something that decent folks listen to. I wouldn't know, because I'm not listening to it. And so, without further ado, let's proceed. Hello again. Welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations, our never-ending audio sex tape about murder.
Sexy.
I don't want to make a sex tape.
No.
This is way better. I like to listen to this. I would not want to watch a sex tape with me in it.
Me neither, of myself. Or anybody.
Good catch. Good save. So anyways, tonight we are we're doing an episode. It's our first hip-hop episode. We are
you sound so white when you say that.
I'm appropriating that word for tonight's episode. It involves a member of the hip-hop community from the 90s, and it's not Biggie, it's not Tupac.
Nope, it's Big Lurch.
Big Lurch.
Do you remember Big Lurch?
I do.
He barely really made it on the scene. He was kind of a up and coming. He was a promising young rapper, and then his career was kind of cut short. Although I just looked, and he just put out a single from, I don't want to give too much away, but from prison. Actually, I love 90s rap, probably because I was a kid in the 90s or a teenager or a young adult in the 90s. So how about I give a quick little bio on Big Lurch?
Give it, yeah. Let's.
All right. His real name was Antron Singleton, and he was born in 1976. So he's like our age, basically.
I'm much younger than
tiny bit older. So he was originally from the Dallas area, and he started writing poetry at a young age and started to pursue a career in rapping, and eventually went out to the Los Angeles area, as many people do when they're pursuing music careers. And he did perform with some fairly big names, including, I haven't heard of all the people that they're listing that he rapped with, but Too Short, Mac Dre, E40, Yuckmouth, Mystical.
Oh, Mystical and Too Short are pretty
Rick Rock, yeah.
well known.
No, I know. And then some other people sound vaguely familiar to me, like Looney Corleone and Cosmic Slop Shop. I'm very suggestible, though, so I don't know if I actually remember those guys or not.
Both those would be good names for a girl's vagina, too.
They're great. They're all great names. God, I love 90s rapper names.
Come here and get in my Looney Corleone.
Anyway, so Antron Singleton, he originally rapped under the name G-Spade, but later changed his rap name to Big Lurch because he was 6'6". He was like a tall, skinny guy, and you remember the character from the Addams Family, Lurch, who was like their butler.
I feel like the word big is kind of redundant.
He would come. It's true. I just can imagine the scenario was probably like at some point someone gave him that nickname, being like, "Hey, come over here, Big Lurch." And it probably wasn't all that flattering, but
it never is. When your nickname starts the word big, it's never like a great connotation.
No, it's really not. I mean, he was really tall, so I'm sure people were always like, "How tall are you?" And he was one of those like heights that people are going to constantly comment on.
You're going to gawk at you.
And I'd constantly ask you probably how tall you are. Side note, I had a friend in high school who was really tall, and one time I said, like probably drunkenly, "How tall are you anyway?" And he just said, "Pretty fucking tall," which I thought was a great answer. Anyway, poor Big Lurch, yeah. So anyways, but he owned that name and he used it as his rap name. It's actually pretty good. And then you remember how in the Addams Family they would call Lurch, and then he would come and he would be like, You rang. Remember that?
Yeah.
So there's actually one of Big Lurch's songs has that line in it. You rang. I think it's actually called You Rang. I listened to some of his songs. They're not bad. It's got a good 90s rap vibe.
West Coast, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you know if he's any relation to John Singleton? I know it's
I
a
doubt
fairly
it.
common
It's
name.
a really common name.
Okay.
No, nowhere in any of my research did I read that. It's a very common name, so I sincerely doubt it. Oh, wait a minute. I just found something that said he earned that nickname from Nubbins Sawyer. I have no idea who that is. But anyway, so I was right. Somebody gave him the nickname. Somebody whose name was Nubbins. So I guess he was like, if I got a stupid nickname, you're going to have one too.
You cracked that case. And listeners, that's why you tune in, because we give you the information other people won't. We talk about nubbins, and we make sure those nicknames are given and earned. We're not just willy-nilly throwing out nicknames to try and have them catch on.
What was your nickname?
Mine? Mm-hmm. When? I've had
I don't know.
several nicknames.
I know.
I was Fro in junior high. They called me Fro because I had afro-ish hair, very curly hair. It was very, very...
Like a jew-fro.
It was a jew-fro.
Yeah.
But I went to school with Lutherans, so it was a novelty to them.
Ah.
Yeah. And then, then I had nicknames that were kind of...
Riffs off your last name.
Riffs. Then I was called Wolf for a while. I wasn't, but I wanted them to call me Wolf. The Wolf's here.
Nice.
But never. And, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of any other... I've had a lot of nicknames, but they're mostly based on my last name.
Yeah.
So...
I never had any because girls don't usually have nicknames. And if they do, it's usually not a good thing.
Yeah. I feel like most girls' nicknames are just straight adjectives without...
Like whore.
Yeah.
Yeah. God damn it. Just another bullshit part of our sexist society. I mean, really.
Well, sometimes they're proper nouns like blowjob queen or
Yeah, well,
giant whore, I
there's
guess.
a nickname that nobody wants.
I guess giant whore isn't a proper noun, though, is it? Well, don't know a lot about grammar, so...
So, back to Big Lurch. So anyways, he was... Frodo. Settle down. Go lay down. So Big Lurch, an up-and-comer rapper in the 90s on the West Coast. Got it? Were y'all there?
Yeah.
All right. So in the 90s, Big Lurch, starting his rapping career in California, Southern California, like many young musicians, goes out there to start his career. Hooks up with some pretty big acts, so it's looking pretty promising for him. Hey. And he was not bad. So things were looking pretty good for him until September of 2000. One day after his 24th birthday, he was driving his car and a drunk driver hit him, and he got pretty seriously injured, broke his neck, and was in the hospital for a while with that, and while in the hospital on heavy medication. He was in a lot of pain afterwards, and go ahead, what?
It's just a dumb question about breaking your neck. I feel like that phrase is, I don't know, it doesn't mean what I think it means. When I think of break your neck, I think, someone just dying, like they twist your neck, you drop dead. And...
You can break your vertebrae and be fine. I mean, not be fine, but you can recover from it. It's a bone.
I know.
If you don't, here's what you're thinking of. Yeah, if you break someone's neck and sever their spinal cord.
No, that's
the tricky. That's the part about your neck that's bad is your spinal cord's in there. So if your spinal cord gets messed up, then you're paralyzed or dead. But if it's just cracking a vertebrae, you're going to be.
I just feel like if Steven Seagal twists your head in a certain direction and it cracks and you drop dead.
Steven Seagal can't twist shit.
He'd probably open a jar of pickles. He probably opens a lot of jars. Have you seen that guy lately? He does not look good.
Oh, my God.
He's a very portly martial artist.
Well, I mean, to be fair, how old is he?
He puts the round and roundhouse kick.
I mean, it's hard to stay in that, tip-top martial arts
probably has a lot
state.
Probably has a lot of pickled cabbage in his beard these days.
Ew.
No, but I don't know. I feel like you break someone's neck, it's like it's a one-motion thing. They fall down, they die.
But that's the movies. You can definitely crack vertebrae. You can hurt your neck, and you can not die. It's your spinal cord is the important part.
I guess.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, I'm sure our fans on YouTube will correct us. By the way, hey, YouTube.
Hey.
You're a bunch of dicks.
You know what? Feel free to correct us. We'll ignore it, or we'll make the correction in our next episode. That's
God,
fine.
I hate YouTube.
I don't care.
It's a medium I can do without.
Oh, well.
No one uses it.
Then why are we on it?
It's very popular with the kids.
Well, there you go. Okay, so anyways, so he's 24. He gets his neck broken, which is shitty. So after he gets released from the hospital, he's still having trouble walking. He's in a lot of pain, and it's at this point where he starts to use drugs because of the chronic pain, including. So when he gets out of the hospital, he's still in a lot of pain. He starts really abusing drugs because of the chronic pain.
Was this before or after the Chronic got released?
When did the chronic get released?
I think 91, 92.
This was 2000.
What year was it?
2000.
In what year?
In the year 2000.
Oh, we have fun.
Ah, do we? Anyway, so one of the drugs he starts using, which I didn't really realize that this had pain-killing properties. I totally associate this drug with a Faces of Death episode that I saw one time.
Go on.
PCP.
Never done PCP.
Me neither. And I actually don't know anyone that has. And I know people that have done pretty much most terrible drugs, but PCP is not a popular one.
No, PCP was the universal drug that all of my friends that were into drugs always wanted to avoid. It's like PCP was like the food poisoning.
You're always afraid that your drugs are going to be laced with PCP, right?
It's like drug. It's their version of food poisoning. If you're in the drug world, it's like,
man, it was bad. It was a bad batch.
You sleep with PCP, and it's like, no one's ever sicking out PCP.
Here's
as far as I know.
Here's a little. This is kind of unrelated, but I always think it's hilarious. There would be these panics that somebody there'd be a rumor there's a bad batch of whatever that was laced with some other drug, and I was always like, why the fuck would anybody put more expensive drugs into a different drug and then try to trick kids into taking that drug? There's no way. Cutting drugs with a cheap filler, yes.
I just heard that was marketing, because you get the people that are bargain hunters. It's like, ooh, I hear it's laced. I get a bonus drug.
I get my joint dipped in PCP.
Get a little crack with this weed. I don't know. I don't know. Never mind. I don't know if I've done PCP.
You've not done PCP.
No,
PCP is one of those things like bath salts or whatever that actual drug is, where every single thing I've ever read about it, I was like, why in the fuck would anybody do this drug? It's just completely associated with people. When I hear about PCP, I hear of horrible stories about people setting themselves on fire or jumping out of a 12-story building or something because they're just so high. They're hallucinating just insanely and I guess violently in a lot of cases. I don't know. I don't even really know what.
So you're saying you're not down with PCP?
PCP is. I'm not down with PCP.
You're not down with PCP?
You know me.
God, sorry. This
God. It's
going to be a rough episode, guys. Forgive me. It's not because I hate you. I'm just naughty by nature.
So white.
Oh, you know what? Now. Yeah, God, I loved that song when it came out.
It was a great song. It's a great song. Okay, so... All right, so, this was sort of the beginning of the end for him. He starts doing PCP. He's living in a house with some other people.
It's to kill the pain? PCP is a painkiller?
I mean, I guess. I think it just, makes you trip your balls off so hard that you're oblivious to pain. Yeah, I don't even know. I sound like a grandma talking about drugs that I don't understand. Do you smoke PCP? How do you ingest it?
I think you definitely can smoke it, but
right?
I feel like whenever you're tripping your balls off, I'm not it's not a painkiller. It's more of a death killer.
I know. I feel like there were a lot of other options that would have been better if all you want to do is kill pain.
No, but any hallucinogen gives me a euphoric state where I'm invincible and I can't be killed.
I mean, I feel like if you're in a chronic pain, you could just take a lot of other drugs that were actually painkillers that weren't going to make you hallucinate.
Yeah, I feel like they really gave him the short end of
It's not like he was sitting by himself in his apartment doing PCP alone. He started hanging out with other people doing PCP with them. And
it's a social thing?
I guess. And then he's living in a house with a couple other people, including this woman named Tynesha Isaias, and I hope I'm saying her last name correctly.
I think PCP is great. Hey, if you out there are listening, you can get us PCP and you want to tell us about it.
No, we do not No. But if anyone's actually done PCP and would like to tell me what it's actually like, I'd be curious. Cause
on purpose. None of that bullshit. I was in the dorm.
No. Not like I think I smoked PCP because I think I smoked a joint that was dipped in it. That's bullshit.
No,
it's an interesting drug because like I've never known anyone who actually did it, and I only you hear horrible stories about it, including this one.
I've never been offered PCP.
I feel like we didn't live in a town where there was any. I'm sure there was PCP somewhere, but nobody. And I knew people that did a lot of pretty hardcore drugs, but
I don't think I've ever been offered a stimulant.
In the '90s, like there were.
People always were trying to get you to calm down.
Our town was more of a heroin town than a PCP town.
We had ecstasy pretty early too.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as like hardcore drugs, like we had a lot of heroin, we had a lot of cocaine. We did not have any PCP here. I don't think I ever heard of.
Or meth. It wasn't really methy.
I don't think meth was like big yet when we were
but meth,
in the 90s.
Meth was definitely around the 90s.
I'm sure it was around, but it was like not around in our.
Not in our town.
I think it was more of a rural thing.
Not in our quaint little college town.
Anyway, okay, so one of his roommates was this woman named Tanisha Isaias. It's Ysais. Isaias. I'm going to say it like that. I'm sorry if it's wrong. So one night he's sitting around, he's smoking PCP with Tanisha and her boyfriend. The next day, what?
His roommate was a woman that had a boyfriend?
Yeah.
And they did PCP together?
I mean, I think there were like a bunch of people living in this house. This was she was one of his roommates.
I think it's going to be it just seems like a flop house at this point. But.
It may have been. I'm not sure. But, I mean, I think he was sort of in a bad place at this point.
But poor Big Lurch, the PCP-loving gangster.
He's like one of the only people we've covered, perhaps the only one so far, that I have any sympathy for, because this gets pretty bad. And I'll get into all the stuff after the crime, and you actually kind of wonder, like...
Oh, he's not going to live this down, ever.
So anyway, well, I mean... Okay, so it's the middle of the day. The neighbors hear thrashing sounds, arguing, yelling, fighting, and then they hear Big Lurch say, "Tanisha, you're a sock." And then screaming, okay? That's like, I only had found one article that said that he said that, but I loved it, because that, if anything sounds like something someone tripping their ass off would say, it's that.
You're a towel.
I mean, oh my God, what a nightmare, because just picture that you're this like young, small woman, and your roommate is 6'6", and his fucking name is Big Lurch, and he's on PCP, and he suddenly attacks you for some reason. I mean, that had to have been terrifying.
In his defense, she may have been a sock. So,
well, he may have thought she was. So next thing you know, one of her friends comes to the apartment to look for her, opens the door, and finds poor Tanisha. Her chest was torn open.
What?
She had a 3-inch paring knife stuck in her scapula. Okay. Yeah, her chest was literally torn open. Her lungs were ripped out. She had bite marks on her face and on her torso and on her lungs, which, remember, had been torn out of her chest.
When you're done, I got questions, but yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm done with that part.
When you say torn, how do you like?
Somebody tore her chest open. I don't know.
Like
cut it open with a knife.
Okay, no, was it cut open?
Pulled it open
Holy
and pulled her lungs
shit.
out. So it had to be somebody really strong. And that's another thing I've heard about PCP before, is it gives people this like unnatural strength, right? That's why it's like an extra nightmare.
No. Well,
I should have done more research on PCP.
Maybe we'll do some research this weekend on it.
Maybe I'll do it real quick and then we'll edit it right in.
Maybe we could do some PCP.
No.
Well, I'm doing some strength training
anyways.
You know what?
Shut the fuck up.
Oh, no, I get my PCP.
So can you imagine walking in on that scene? And I did accidentally stumble on some crime scene photos that were just little glimpses of it, but I don't know if they were actually her or not. I'm always like, crime scene photos, I'm always like, is this actually real or is this something that's bullshit? But whatever it was pretty terrifying.
What was the cause of death?
What was the cause of death? I don't know, blood loss.
No,
Probably.
okay. I'm just wondering, like, if she was alive.
I didn't read anything that said she'd been strangled, or she was not strangled or shot, or I don't know if she was stabbed to death and then her chest was ripped open.
That's why I was wondering if she was alive when the tearing started.
I don't know.
Cause of death was massive trauma. I guess I'm just wondering if she was alive for any of the chest tearing kind of stuff.
I sure as fuck hope not.
Love will tear you apart.
I mean, I can't find anything that
that
actually says that. I mean, I would not be surprised if she was alive, because it sounds, everything that I've read about this case says her chest was torn open. That seems to be like the major trauma to her body, is that her chest was torn open. There was a knife stuck in her at so probably that was used, and her lungs were partly removed and had bite marks on them.
That's
okay.
Amazing.
I cannot really imagine much of a more horrific death scene. And then her friend stumbles across this. Oh my God. Calls the police, obviously. So then they're looking for Big Lurch.
If you beat someone to death with a baby, that'd be probably worse.
Well, I can't imagine worse things, but this is pretty bad. So, this poor woman, I mean, my God, that's terrifying. So anyways, they're looking for him, and they don't have to look far, because he gets picked up pretty quickly, naked, covered in blood, standing in the middle of a street and staring at the sky.
We've all been there.
Well,
Jesus.
Yeah, so it's not like he sobered up after he did this. I mean...
So, was this in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Or, that really speaks well to the LA police that a naked black man covered in blood didn't get shot on sight. Jesus fucking
Yeah, that's
Christ.
actually amazing. Oh my God. Maybe they were just so shocked. Well, he obviously wasn't armed if he was naked.
Well...
It'd be hard to get out of that one.
There could be plenty of things out there that would have caused confusion to the police.
We thought he had a gun. Where?
Yeah, it's just his dick. Sorry, it was. But
Anyways,
but it was bigger than mine, so I shot him.
A guy who was 6'6", standing in the middle of the street, covered in blood.
It is actually justifiable homicide if you're an officer to shoot a man who has a bigger penis than you. That is
it
on the books. Yeah,
is it in the police code?
Yeah. Hello.
More details about the murder. No, I have a lot of articles that I read, but I didn't go as deeply into the details of the actual murder itself because I was creeped out by it, but that's what this whole murder podcast is about. So here you go. Here are the really horrible details. According to the prosecution,
I mean, okay, yeah. Again, the dog's doing bullshit here, but, like, do we have a scene? I mean, like, beside him calling her a big sock, what set up the scene here? Like, what's going on?
All right.
Spit it, Laura.
All right, so here's what the prosecution said. They claimed that he was waited until the two were alone, and then he began torturing her. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know, or if he was just out of his fucking brain on PCP, who knows? But she was alive. Well, he basically tore her apart. She was alive while he hacked at her chest. He cut her up 4 times before he was able to break through her chest, and the 4th incision was fatal. So there you go. There's your cause of death. So basically stabbed her in the chest 4 times, and then ripped her chest open. Also bit her cheek. She was alive during that also. And after he was picked up, the medical exam revealed that he had human flesh, not his own, in his stomach. So he did eat parts of her flesh while he was biting her. And he bit her lung and her cheek, so...
You should probably work an appetite up when you tear somebody apart with your hands.
Oh my God.
But really, let's focus on his music and his message. On this one act.
When police questioned him on the day of the murder, he growled like an animal.
Laura, check your privilege.
Anyway, he was obviously, he was charged with murder.
As was the style at the time.
Hold on a minute.
So, okay, but they weren't dating. There's no romantic
No,
relationship.
she had a boyfriend, and apparently they'd been hanging out the day before, and her mother later, and I'll get into her mother in a minute.
No spurned advances. Nothing like that.
I mean, we don't know. Who knows?
Okay.
Who knows? Maybe he had a thing for her and she rejected him. I don't know. But it sounds like really probably the most likely thing is he was out of his fucking mind on PCP.
There's not a lot of
and
scenarios.
He thought something. Maybe he thought she was... Who knows? There's actually some...
It's very rare that a scenario escalates to tearing open someone's chest and eating their lungs.
It is. So I don't know.
Sadly.
But I will get into that. There are some theories on what may have actually happened.
Okay.
But let me back up a little bit. So... So yeah, that was in April that this crime happened. He was convicted of murder and aggravated mayhem in June. So that didn't take long. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but the court ruled that, guess.
That he wasn't insane?
Yeah, you can't use an insanity defense if you're just on a whole lot of drugs.
Yeah, you're not insane, but I think you could maybe work around first-degree murder, but avoid a death penalty at least. I mean,
he didn't get a death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they had the death penalty. Do they have the death penalty in California? I think they do.
They didn't, and then they did, and they may not again.
It's confusing.
I mean...
Anyway, he's in prison for life. I don't know if he'll ever get paroled. But, yeah, they convicted him pretty fast, and the judge did not accept a insanity plea because he admittedly was on PCP, which he willingly had taken, and...
Well,
so that's kind of hard to argue with.
Being drunk isn't a defense to driving drunk and killing somebody.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's underlying, yeah.
Because, I mean, you can't let someone make an insanity plea if they're under the influence, because that would open the door to every single drunk driver and every single person who kills someone under the influence to saying, I was insane at the time. I mean...
Well, again, if you get blackout drunk or you become so inebriated or intoxicated or under the influence of a narcotic that it allows you to tear open someone's chest, it's not insanity. It's a choice that you made that caused a thing to happen, and yeah, maybe you should go to prison for a little bit or a long time. It's pretty aggressive. It's a pretty big jump there.
It's pretty bad.
I can't help but think we should try PCP though. I mean, it must be fantastic.
It's not, drop that joke. That's not funny. You've said that 4 times now, and
wow,
it's clearly not. It's not going to happen.
Kind of a bitch right now.
Well, yeah.
Just
after he was convicted, Tanisha's mother actually sued. Back up. After he was convicted, his record label, which was called... I lost it. Black Market Records, his record label, released an album of his, because he'd been working on an album before this happened. So it was supposed to be called Puppet Master, I think, and he changed the name of it to It's All Bad, which is a great album name. And you should look it up, because the album cover is this amazing picture of Big Lurch in like a suit and like a bowler style hat, and he has a tray. He's holding a tray in one hand, and there's a skull on the tray. It's like in such terrible taste. It's amazingly great. But so the interesting thing is the mother of the victim, the mother of Tanisha, this woman named Carolyn Stinson, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Black Market Records, which was his record label, because she feels that she's forgiven Big Lurch because she thinks he was set up. She thinks that he was given drugs, encouraged to do drugs by his record label in order to make something terrible happen and push this whole like gangster rap violent persona in order to sell more records. And you know what? I bet he did sell a lot of records because people knew that he'd killed and eaten somebody, and they bought his album because of it. Because they released released this album after the fact. And the other thing is there were some other things that didn't come out in the trial that both Big Lurch himself and the victim's mother, which is just such a crazy twist there, both have called into question whether or not he actually killed her, or if someone else had killed her and then just kind of fed him a lot of PCP and like made him eat parts of her and then set him up. Because the mother said that her daughter's boyfriend, who remember had been doing PCP with them the night before, was like a gangbanger and was like this terrible guy. And she kind of wonders out loud if someone else killed this girl and then set up Big Lurch to look like he had done it. Because she said something in one of these interviews, something about like, well, if this guy's out of his mind on PCP and someone hands him a piece of lung and says, here, eat this steak, and what's he going to know? And then next thing you know, he's covered in blood and there's... he's got her flesh in his stomach. There were fingerprints apparently in the apartment that weren't his, that were never really followed up on. Basically, they found him covered in blood. Boom, he was convicted. So both he and the victim's mother, amazingly, he doesn't remember any of it, which is legitimate. He probably doesn't. I mean, if you're that high, you probably don't remember it. He said he remembered nothing until like waking up in jail. Or in the hospital, maybe, but like shackled probably in the hospital. Like, I mean, I think he was under like, I think they said he had to be readmitted under like PCP-induced psychosis several times after he was arrested. Like, that's how completely out of his mind he was.
I mean, that's a pretty elaborate way to frame somebody for murder. I mean,
it seems like it's not that much of a surefire way to frame someone. No. It's like, let's kill her, and then let's hope that this guy gets high enough that he eats her.
And you gotta think, too, I mean,
he probably did it.
I mean, it's the whole flat earth thing. People out there want something to believe in. If this mother of the victim, I mean, God bless her. I mean, that's a terrible thing, obviously, to have your daughter be eaten alive, but this preserves her memory. It gives her something to chase, something to do.
Right, exactly. She's talked to him in prison. Like, she wants him to be... Well, she stands behind the Free Big Lurch... movement.
Wouldn't it be better to think, too, that there was a purpose or motivation in someone killing your daughter than it was just some random act that happened?
Absolutely.
Like, it gives you something to do, something
it
to
totally
chase.
makes psychological sense.
Yeah, because that way, as long as you're pursuing what really happened, you don't have to really...
It obviously makes psychological sense for him. Like, how would you live with yourself if you... Because I don't think he had any kind of violent crime record before this or anything. It wasn't like he was
this is
violent guy who then happened to be on PCP. Like, it seems like he was like a fairly normal guy who had possibly had a drug problem, was doing these super heavy duty drugs, and did this horrible thing. So, I mean, what a horrible thing to live with, knowing that you did that. So it's probably a lot easier to say, I was set up. And then you're right, it's probably a lot easier for the victim's mother.
I mean, he was set up to the extent that he didn't intend to do this. He has no memory of it,
set
probably.
Up by the PCP demon.
The PCP, the big PCP set him up here. The PCP,
well,
it's the, but I mean...
Speaking of demons, go ahead.
No, it's one of those things where, I mean, this is this is an inchoate offense. I mean, he didn't intend to do this, I imagine. It was, I mean, fucking horrible for her, obviously, and horrible for him to wake up having no idea what happened, but I highly doubt anyone else was involved in this kind of thing. It's just two people in Los Angeles who were doing PCP together, and one basically OD'd and killed her. I mean, if they were doing heroin and he had OD'd and dropped dead, nobody wouldn't, people... It's the same thing. I mean, people always want to find some sort of worthy adversary in life, and there usually isn't one. I mean... all this is some guy that did too many drugs and ate his fucking roommate. Right.
Or there's an alternative theory.
We'll go on.
Demon possession.
Well, no, that makes more sense.
I found a guy, his name is Paul Dale Roberts, and he is a Hegelianism paranormal intelligence detective. He read about this case and thought, you know what? This guy sounds like he was possessed by a demon. So, here's why he thinks that. He said,
demons never buy, they only rent. It's kind of weird.
He said, demon possession usually occurs when a person is unstable. May it be mental, may it be alcohol-induced, or may it be drugs. Those are the three main weaknesses that demons seek out for full control of your body and mind.
That's convenient. That works out.
So he thinks that Antron Singleton, Big Lurch, may have experienced demon infestation in the beginning stages of his PCP use. Now, hear him out here. A listener of this guy's show contacted him and gave him some more information. So this guy whose name, the name that he gave on the radio show was Loco Samurai. He says that his friend Sidewinder knew Big Lurch. Okay, so here we've already got like three. This is like third, fourth hand. Just saying. But anyway, Paul, that's the paranormal investigator, says that, asks Loco Samurai, says, Loco, in your voicemail, you say that you thought he was demon possessed. Why do you think that? So this is Loco Samurai's explanation. He says, Sidewinder told me one night they went out drinking and Big Lurch felt a demon called Hagenti was inside him. Haagenti. And Paul breaks it down for us that Hagenti is a demon who is a great president of hell, ruling 33 legions of demons. He makes men wise by instructing them in every subject, transmutes all metals into gold, and changes wine into water and water into wine. Well, that doesn't sound too bad.
Well, and really, the nice of this, apparently hell's a democracy. They have a president. That's
Yeah,
not a bad. That's not a bad. Yeah.
Who knew?
Is the parliamentary system of government too, or how do they do that?
I mean, really, like comparing that to our.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's good to know.
At least he was a great president of hell, not like this shit president of hell we have right now.
It's good to know when we go to hell, there'll be some great election cycles and policies. So
yeah,
we get that going for us.
So back to Loco Samurai, he said that his friend said Big Lurch told him he started hearing voices, conversations everywhere, and felt like he was going crazy. Probably because of his constant PCP use, but also could have been demons.
Yeah.
Paul says, Paul with a whole lot of confidence said, this is demon infestation. Beginning stages of demon possession. I didn't know.
Why don't demons ever go after like a stable math teacher or a physicist?
Paul has no doubt that Big Lurch was possessed by a demon when he killed that girl.
Well.
And Loco Samurai asks during this interview, how could he have gotten rid of that demon attachment? And Paul says that the only way to get rid of a demon attachment is full submerged baptism. So there you go.
Full submerged mean what? You're underwater the whole time? I guess.
If you just get a little splash of holy water, forget it. You're not going to detach that demon.
None of that Catholic or Lutheran bullshit.
No, that's bullshit. You got to have a full dunk like the Baptists.
Take them to the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, I think so.
That's why Baptists don't eat each other.
Then Loco Samurai goes on to say that Big Lurch was actually a nice guy and it's a shame about him. So, which, it is kind of a shame. I mean, 2 lives really destroyed by PCP in this story. This poor woman who, I mean, like, really, we have to kind of gloss over it and make jokes because otherwise it would be so horrifically depressing to talk about all these people who are murdered. But this is a fucking nightmare. Let's just think for a second about what this poor woman went through. And all I can say is, I hope it was really fast. Because, like, can you imagine? Oh, my God.
I know, but it's such a stereotype. A rapper sampling something that wasn't theirs. I mean... And again,
all right.
And really, if we can get into the real issue here, culture appropriation. This is such a white person thing to do, to use a hallucinogen and then cannibalize somebody.
Cannibalism.
I feel
very Jeffrey Dahmer.
I feel like white people own cannibalism. I mean, even Ted Bundy was into it here. I mean,
Ew, he was not.
Necrophilia. I just kind of imagine.
That's different.
You'd probably bite a nipple off here and there.
Ew. Anyway, so Big Lurch is still in prison and still putting out music, and it's not bad. I mean, really, I listened to a couple songs, and it's that kind of 90s rap sound that...
I feel like we're not horrified enough by this right now.
I am horrified by it, but what I'm not here's the difference between this case and many other cases is this was not a case of a guy who had a weird sexual fetish for eating people or killed a woman who he was in maybe they'd gotten in a fight or something. I guess we'll never know, but it's not a guy who killed his wife or something like that. Like, this sounds like a guy who took too many drugs and flipped the fuck out. And I feel just a tiny bit bad for him. I clearly feel a lot worse for his victim.
I do too, but
but I feel a tiny bit bad for him because I think, oh man, he just should have stayed away from that PCP, and he would have had a nice career there.
It's weird that the least evil person we've discussed so far is the person that ate somebody's lungs when they were dying and tore them apart with their hands. This is the person who's the least objectionable of all the episodes we've done.
Yeah.
And I mean, also, it's probably the most avoidable murder that
I was going to say, this is like the only one where I have like solid advice for how to avoid being murdered in circumstances like this. Just like, don't do PCP.
Or don't associate with up-and-coming rappers in the 90s in California, early that night. And that was a bad time for... There
were a lot of deaths. But yeah, but also don't hang out with someone who's high on PCP.
Well, and my number one rule for surviving anything, don't associate with Suge Knight. Now, I'm not sure where he comes into this at all, but God. I feel at some point...
So, there's one more little piece to this, a little after note here that Big Lurch said that later that he felt he was set up by his lawyer. Okay?
Well, they all say that shit.
Okay, but he claims that his lawyer, whose name was Milton Grimes, which is a pretty great lawyer name, I gotta say, Milton Grimes. He said that that his attorney was had gang connections and was in cahoots with the DA. And hold on a second. He said, this is a quote from Big Lurch. He says, I was signed to Milton Grimes' label, Stress Free Records. He was also my lawyer, so I trusted him. Grimes never said there was a pit bull in the dope house with us. Oh, so there was a pit bull in the house they were in. So maybe the pit bull had ripped her open. Is that what he's saying? A matter of fact, Grimes went on the Geraldo show and played an unreleased song of mine, Texas Boy. They brought up that song like it was a blueprint for the murder, and the jury went for it. Grimes didn't even let me have decent clothes to wear in court. He had me looking like Hannibal Lecter. There's not even any proof I actually did the murder. We started smoking PCP, and they just kept feeding it to me and feeding it to me. The next thing I know, I wake up in jail with a murder.
Okay, her lungs were in his stomach. That's a little bit of proof.
He also says his prints weren't on the weapon. It was a dope house. They didn't find any. He says,
it was a dope house. Oh, it was a dope house.
Yeah, that makes sense. It says that in no other articles. It's like they were trying to sugarcoat that fact. But, I mean, he says it himself. He says they didn't find any dope in the dope house, though.
Let's see. But now we're getting somewhere, though. I mean,
Frodo, don't play with your loudest.
Dope. I think this is a flop.
Go lie down.
This is a flop house of some kind, though, too, you know?
Right. So he says it was a dope house, but the cops didn't find any drugs there, so that is kind of suspect. Like, people maybe knew something was going to happen. We were on Figueroa. Oh, okay. We were heavily armed up in there. We had all kinds of guns up in there, but when police came to the spot, there were no guns. Gangbangers cleaned it up. I just paraphrased that last part because it was too long. Anyway, he said his lawyer had him plead insanity because he was high on PCP, even though he knew that claim wouldn't work in California. And he says that he threw him under the bus and that he didn't use the statement from Tynesha's mother, who was willing to take the stand to say he was set up. Tynesha's mother, Carolyn Stinson, came to visit him and forgave him when he was in prison. Here's what Carolyn Stinson, the mother of the victim, has to say. What were you going to say?
Yeah, Milton Grimes, he is pretty shady. He did have a small case with a guy named Rodney King, though, where he got a verdict for him.
Maybe that's why his name sounds so familiar.
I've studied him. This guy is the least shady attorney in the world. I mean, no, he's a prominent national attorney. This is a high-profile case, and I mean, the guy ate somebody. I think Milton Grimes is okay. He is my seal of approval here.
Here's pictures of Big Lurch when he got arrested. Want to see?
Well, this looks like a very fit man.
He looks out of his mind, though. He's like, his eyes are like rolling back in his head. Anyway, I think we probably are onto something with thinking that both this guy and the victim's mom probably would rather live with the fact that thinking he was set up than live with the fact that he just was out of his mind and murdered her in cold blood.
Oh my God, this guy's done cases I'm familiar with too. He got an insanity plea for one of the most guilty murderers in the world, Cheryl Massett. Cheryl Massip, if I don't remember this case, she ran over her son's head,
Oh.
who was 6, and then tried to convince her husband.
6 weeks old.
Right,
not
6 weeks old, and then tried to
Oh
convince
my
her
God.
tried to convince her husband that it was a kidnapping. I mean, this was the
He got her a not guilty.
by insanity.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, this is the guy you go to for insanity. I mean, he has a proven track record.
Was that
here.
in California?
It was, and Cheryl was an
right.
adorable middle-class white woman.
Well, yeah.
and
This
it
guy was a
postpart-
gangster rapper, which probably did not help.
Honestly, though, I wouldn't be surprised if race did have some factor here, though, because you're a giant black man covered in blood. I mean, and again,
Right.
I hate to get into the race of the victim here, but it was a black woman who people seem to have very little sympathy for in society. But, like, if this is a white woman, they probably would have reopened the death penalty just for him, and everybody would know who he is. But
Sounds like this case was closed pretty quickly, too, because it's happened in April, and then by June he'd been convicted. So isn't that a pretty fast turnaround for a big murder
It
case?
sounds like there was a plethora of evidence here to convict him.
Well, I mean,
Again,
he had her
lungs in the
flesh
stomach.
in his stomach.
There's not a big defense.
That's a hard piece of evidence to overcome. Oh, she was really pretty. So it sounds like she was hanging out with some pretty shady boyfriend, according to her mom. And the boyfriend was like hanging out in this house, and Big Lurch was hanging out in this house. I guess they knew each other, but and who knows? Maybe they did get into some kind of fight. Maybe he did try to hit on her, and she spurned him or whatever. But who knows? But we'll never know that. I mean, it doesn't even really matter because he was just so fucked out of his mind on drugs, clearly. And I'm like, no one's denying that. Not even the prosecution was saying like, oh no, he was in his right. Like he was like, when they picked him up, he had to be like hospitalized for PCP-induced psychosis. So he was psychotic. It was just that he was psychotic because of the drugs. So those kinds of cases are so tricky because you're like, you shouldn't have done. It's like a drunk driving case where you're like, although it's actually not as. If you're drunk driving, you got to know that you're driving a big car that could crash into someone and kill someone. If you're doing drugs, you're probably not thinking like, I might go insane and rip this person's chest open. I mean, like, what a shock to everyone.
I'm going to see if there's a death penalty in California, too, because, I mean, that could have been the big accomplishment here, too.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean,
so there was a petition to free Big Lurch, but it didn't really go anywhere, and the website for that is now down. Although you can write to him in prison. He's at California State Prison, Sacramento, and I was on YouTube listening to one of his songs, and the video had his, said, write to Big Lurch, and it had his address in prison. And then on Reddit, where you can find literally everything, somebody had written to Big Lurch, and Big Lurch wrote back to him, and basically was like,
I love writing to prisoners.
It's pretty. You do not. You write to prisoners?
It's a good revenge tactic. If someone's bothering you, or you want to play a prank, you can like write a letter to somebody on death row and give them their name and address. Always say they're a lawyer, and then they'll write back to them and really freak them out. When somebody, and I did this once to a person that worked with a buddy of mine.
Terrible thing to do.
But / hilarious.
Is that legal? Can you do that to someone, or is that like some kind of harassment?
Well, I didn't actually do it then. You bring that up, but no. I don't.
I mean, if one were to do that.
If one were to do that, you can go to these websites and you can send them a letter.
You can write to all kinds of prisoners. It's so creepy, though.
I mean, the prisoners' letters are monitored, so they're. I mean, they can't send you horrible things, but just the thought that somebody on death row could send someone else a letter, you know.
Yeah, I love to read like the letters that people wrote to what's his name? Oh, God damn it.
And yeah, California does have a death penalty.
Did it at that point?
It's had it since 1974.
Okay, and there weren't any breaks in that?
Well, there was a break. Remember Manson? You've heard of him?
I think so.
Yes.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, nice guy. Little known musician.
But that was in the 60s, right?
I think when he was charged, there was a death penalty, and they suspended it for a while. That's why he's still alive right now.
Okay.
Also, he didn't kill anyone. But, no. But
That's an interesting case.
Yeah.
I always feel like
Little-known
Manson
case.
is a boring case, but like really, if you read about it, it's not boring.
I don't want anything about him until he dies, though, because he is convinced he's immortal, and so far he's been proven right.
I feel like there's like a fake news article about every 3 weeks saying that he died, and then everyone's freaking out, and then everyone's like, it's fake news. He just has like, I know I'm veering off topic, but Manson has just the crazy eyes, doesn't he? Like if you just look at his eyes, like he is fucking nuts.
He'd be a fun guy to have over for dinner.
No. He's just one of those crazy, like, cult leader types who probably, like, is too much of a pussy to actually, like, have ever, like, murdered anybody. Not saying that it's good to murder people at all. Like, I'm not saying, like, don't be a pussy and not murder people yourself. That's not. All right. I just mean, like, I feel like Manson was one of those manipulative, slick sociopaths who manipulated his fucking quote-unquote family into murdering those people, but I bet he would have never had the guts to do it himself.
I got a question for you.
What?
Marry, fuck, or kill?
No, I'm not playing that with serial killers.
In their prime.
Nope.
David Koresh, Ted Bundy, Manson.
No. Not playing that game with serial killers or mass murderers or cult leaders. That's gross.
I'd kill David Koresh.
All right, listeners.
And I think I'd fuck Ted Bundy, but I'd marry Manson.
Oh my God. Well, it's
in prison.
A real bad choice. You have to marry Manson because he's the only one who isn't going to kill you. If you marry David Koresh, you're in the fucking cult. You can't do that. You cannot marry Ted Bundy. Although Bundy was married in prison, you know, like he was married and had a daughter while he was in prison. And have you ever heard the story of how he got married?
No.
Okay, so he was in court and somehow... Oh, fuck, I gotta look it up. And somehow, like, there was some little loophole-y thing where his girlfriend... how did Bundy get married? Hold on, it's this, like, ridiculous little story. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Trial. Here we go. Okay. So he's in trial in prison after the Chi Omega homicides and assaults, all right? So he's like this insane woman named Carol Ann Boone who was somehow in love with a guy who'd murdered a bunch of women and had sex with their corpses. Bundy took advantage of an obscure Florida law providing that a marriage declaration in court in the presence of a judge constituted a legal marriage. So because of course, you know, Bundy represented himself. So as he was questioning former state DES worker Carol Ann Boone, who had moved to Florida to be near Bundy and had testified on his behalf during both trials and was again testifying on his behalf as a character witness, and he's questioning her because he's representing himself, he asks her to marry him and she says yes. So Bundy declares to the court that they are legally married. I mean, you got to give it to him. He was a terrible person, but that was clever. Actually, Bundy was quite clever. As horrible as he was, he did a lot of things that were pretty fucking cunning. It's actually an amazing story. Like, I know everybody in the world wants to talk about Ted Bundy, but it isn't.
Well, I mean, there's a few people up there that kind of set the pace.
It is a fucking balls to the wall insane story that just, you can't even believe. It's like,
it's got 2 prison escapes.
I can't believe they're his multiple escape. It's just nuts. Anyways.
Okay, back to Big Lurch.
Back to Big Lurch.
What the fuck we're talking about.
Not quite as amazing not quite as cunning because he's in prison still, but...
Yeah, and his lawyer did not set him up. Sorry. I took great offense to that. Go on.
Anyway, but, you know, so he was either on PCP or possessed by a demon or both. But yeah, he is in prison for life.
Where he belongs. For a little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, he definitely belonged. You have to go to prison if you rip someone's chest open. I mean, like, yeah.
Well, in California, doesn't release dates of inmates either. So
I wonder if he'll get out. I mean, I don't know. Like, does it say? Can you?
It was a plea deal, right?
It says it is not known whether he will ever be eligible for parole, but that's Wikipedia.
Well, they don't state that on the California site. That's the whole thing.
But can't you, like, appeal and try to get parole?
Appeal's done. Well, I mean, it really depends. I mean, some some people aren't eligible for parole, but they just don't state that, and the sentence and stuff is kept kind of
I'm kind of
close to
guessing
the
he's
vest.
not eligible for parole.
I bet she would be.
You think he would?
Yeah, I mean, okay, if I were a judge in this case for me, I'd give him a 20-year sentence.
That's what I was
going
to say. Is like, to me, I don't think he seems like a guy who needs to be in prison until he's 90 years old. Like, he seems like a guy who did a terrible thing, needed to go to prison for it, but probably isn't going to continue to be a danger to society as long as he doesn't go back to doing PCP.
All right, so, I don't know. I feel good wrapping this up right now a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, I would avoid this a number of ways. I would not live with an aspiring music artist who does PCP. I would advise you all to do the same thing. Also, if anyone came to my house and said, hey, tonight I was thinking pizza and PCP, I'd be like, whoa.
Yes to the first.
Yeah. Maybe.
Let me think about it.
Pizza and pepperoni, pizza and Pepsi, not pizza and PCP.
No.
Oh, I almost forgot. Sponsorship. Oh, I'll get that in a second here. But yeah, so you basically avoid murder here by not associating people that do PCP
Stay
habitually.
away from those crazy drugs like PCP and bath salts. Oh, can I just talk real quick about crazy crime of the week? So there was an article, I put it on our Facebook page, some guy in Chicago who was on some kind of drugs. I think it was bath salts. What are bath salts? Like, what's the actual name of the drug?
I don't know. Let's not do research in real time.
I just associate that with like people eating people also, because
there has been some shit, yeah.
Like people eating someone's face. Well, anyways, he cut off his own penis and then he was like screaming at the police.
No,
that's going to be a hard sobering up. Man, you wake up from that and you're like...
Again, they didn't shoot him, though. I mean, he was holding something in his hand, I imagine.
I don't know if he was. Whoa.
Whoa. All right.
Don't do drugs. Say no. Just say no.
No, and okay, and so we're talking about doing ads on the show here, and I just want to throw this out there. It isn't an ad, but this is a disincentive ad where I am just going to each week mention a product or service or a place that I don't support, and I'm going to talk some shit about it. And if they want to give us money, I'll stop mentioning it. But I want to.
That sounds like blackmail to me.
Well, okay, I just think that Big Lurch, after he ate a set of human lungs high in PCP, if he was still hungry, the ideal place for him to go would be Which, America's worst sandwich shop.
That's a terrible name.
It is. And if you're a giant douchebag who has framed pictures with words in them, this is the place where you go, because here it's the home of the meatball sandwich that puts pepperoni, bacon, and mayonnaise on top of the meatballs.
That is wrong.
It's just it's part of the idiocracy we're living right now. If you have a chance to go to Which, I mean, it doesn't need to exist. I mean, they give you a bag where you write down what you want in your sandwich because they don't trust their employees to actually interact with you, and they just stuff it full of like shitty meat.
That just sounds like
bread.
Subway.
Well, I know, and Subway sucks. I mean, do we need more shitty
and Jimmy
sandwich
John's
places?
kind of sucks because Jimmy John's is the best tasting of them. But
I love Jimmy John's.
But the CEO of Jimmy John's is like a real piece of shit.
Is he? He's a self-made man. He built a business up.
Have you
Why is
seen
he a
him?
piece of shit?
I don't know. He just has this annoying baby face.
Because he hunts?
With these big dimples and this big shit-eating grin, and then he's like killing these wild animals in Africa. He's just like a rich douchebag. Yeah. You know what? Buy your cold cuts and eat your fucking sandwiches at home and save some money.
Who do you love? Who's your favorite rich guy out there right now? It's not a giant douchebag.
Super rich guys are often giant douchebags. So
you got to be a little bit douchey to get to the billionaire level.
You do. You got to step on some people. I think probably.
Yeah, but I mean, Jimmy John's. He just looks okay. Yeah.
Ew, I don't like the look of him.
No, he's got a weird look, but
he's got a punchable face.
Punchable face. He worked hard. He built a business, and goddamn it, it's good sandwiches. I don't care if he's a douchebag. It's good. I mean, it's not a shitty product. And that's why you should eat Jimmy John's.
No, we're not plugging anything.
Well.
And we're not blackmailing anyone.
But seriously, I just think if I was a serial killer, I would eat at Which, because I would use that to find my next victim. I would go in there and say, look.
The Which killer.
Yeah, the Which killer.
You only kill people that...
I'd be a conscientious killer. I'd be like,
Which.
If you're the kind of person who goes to Which
like
on
Dexter.
Purpose... You don't, it'd be a lot more petty. It'd be like if Seinfeld met Dexter. It'd be like, it's kind of like...
yeah, I think the world could...
Who do we not need? Oh, these guys, the person... if you're at Which, what are you living for? What do we need you for? This is your...
It's like Louis C.K. I'm at Cinnabon.
Yeah. Witch.
I'm no witch. God damn it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Cinnabon's like, I don't know. That's its own thing.
Is it good or is it just?
No, I'm not gonna. It's all bad. There you go.
It's all bad.
And then now we're full circle.
The name of Big Lurch's album.
And since I don't feel like we'll get sued anyways, I'm going to send us out with some Big Lurch. So here is a song off one of his albums. And I don't know, because I'm going to add it later.
Oh. You're going to play, I know which one.
Which one should I play?
The one that's where he goes, you rang.
Okay, we're going to play the You Rang song. And I don't know what it's called, but you're going to hear it in a few seconds. Anyways, thanks for listening.
Good night.
Have a happy end of July. And we'll see you a couple times in August.
You rang. Big Lurch in the hands for the 9-tray, 9-6 up in this box. Mob music, boy. Now I was depressed in a bitch one night. Then I house. My little boy needed some diapers and I was broke. What I'm gon' do? Then it hit my mind how to make a grip. I'm finna go jacking solo on the bugner strip. Crank the cutlass, now I'm rolling, but I ain't tripping. Yeah, it's stolen. Sitting at the light, I see you posing. 16 switches and some goings, and I'm gonna get you. If I'm lying, then I'm fine. Look your true. Got a gauge in my lap, and the name on the slug says you. So I'm big fake, and they ain't on that foe. Got me sweating bad, thinking to myself, you need to go ahead and get that ass turned into trenches. Cause he was hungry, was my rendition. But I can't believe this damn fool finna get his car took for a piece of chicken. Jump on my ride, gauge him a cup, waiting for him and there he go. Bitch ass nigga, give me yo chicken money and 64. Up his nose was my shield, was wrong in your captain feel. Sorry, had to get you, but if I didn't, somebody else will. Birthed that plan with the nigga switches, plus his riches was mine. And under the seat I found a stash box with a fucking 9, and all that's fine. Cause I needed that grip, but what's the price I pay? All I know is that my family's broken, needed some ends, G and money, BD. Root of all evil, for what it's worth. But if I got to get it like that, then hell must be here on earth. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Walking down the cook one day, selling 50s, 20s and dimes. Sold to a damn undercover, all of a sudden I see one time trying to gaffle a nigga up, but they won't be gaffling me. Broke on them hoes so bad, looking like Carl Lewis, one of your track mates. Got to the hide, I flashed my dope, came back outside talking trash. Punk ass Peckerwood loud, looking like they fenced up what Big Lurch's ass. Went so for my homies, got me fucked up. You ain't whooping shit. Look at yourself again. You's a white boy patrolling this nigga's clique. Everybody's out with hella heat paddles, got an AK. Looked at the law and said, bitch, I suggest that you be on your way. Got in this car, rolled down the block, called in for some backup fast. Now I think we done fucked up po-pos a little bit deeper than us. Police came back deep in a bitch. SWAT team bikes, helicopters too. Motorcycles and vans, they tripped me out. They even came walking through. If you ask me, po-pos ain't shit but another gang trying to gang bang on the niggas from my hood, mine. But I ain't going out like that. I goes out like a fucking G, and every louder steps on my path will become a casualty. Had to be a fucking fool. Ended up getting put in the dirt, and for that fucking reason, I'm believing hell is here on earth. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Fucking up niggas all the time, letting them hit it from behind. I'm sick of drinking gin and wine and catering hoes that think they fine. All on the nuts of a truth, suck dick is what you can do. Buy me a car, canine suit, Jordans, guessing Gucci you. Want some bleeding straight dictates and hoe with every venereal disease from crabs, syphilis, and HIV. And that's a shame you ain't getting me when I first met you. You was cool, so I took you and bought you lunch. 2 minutes later, you was trying to give me your battered, beat up, stanky cunt. I don't want nothing to do with that dark, cause you fill my room with bunk. I ain't no punk, but now now they sex kills. Is a whopper what you want? Not being funny, but it's 99 cents. All your life is worth. I think not, that's why Big Lurch believes that hell is here on earth. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man. Dope dealing, cap killing, crooked cops and ass selling, gang banging, Satan singing, hell must be on earth, man.